Here's a number that should stop you cold. More than half of all households in this country are one bad week away from running out of food entirely. Not because of a war, not because of a famine, just because the power went out, because the roads flooded, because a storm hit and the shelves at every grocery store within 20 miles emptied in 4 hours. But here's what makes that number even more alarming. Even the people who do have food stored at home, most of them have stocked the wrong kind. They have pasta. They have rice. They have frozen meals. All of it completely useless the moment the stove stops working and the power stays off for more than a day. So today we're doing something different. We're not talking about what to cook. We're talking about the 15 no-cook foods you'll actually want if a crisis hits, foods that need no heat, no electricity, foods you can find at any supermarket today, store for months or even years, and eat immediately when everything else stops working. No-cook foods aren't a backup plan. In many scenarios, they're the only plan. And one of the items on this list? Archaeologists found it sealed in an Egyptian tomb over 3,000 years ago, and it was still perfectly edible. We'll get to that. But first, if you're watching this and you haven't prepared anything yet, don't panic. That's exactly what this video is for. Every single item on this list is affordable, available, and easy to store starting today. Let's get into it. Number 15. Tuna and salmon pouches. When most people think about emergency food, their first instinct is calories. Pack as many as you can. And that's not wrong, calories matter. But there's a second nutrient that deserves just as much attention, and in a crisis, it often gets ignored entirely. Protein. When your body is under sustained stress, physical exertion, lack of sleep, mental pressure, constant movement, it doesn't just burn calories. It starts breaking down your own muscle tissue to fuel itself. And once that process starts, your strength, your endurance, and your mental sharpness all decline together. That's why tuna and salmon pouches show up near the top of almost every serious emergency food list. A single small pouch typically delivers around 20 grams of protein, roughly the equivalent of 3 eggs, with 0 cooking required. Salmon specifically offers something extra. It's one of the richest natural sources of omega-3 fatty acids, which support both cardiovascular function and cognitive clarity. When you're exhausted and under pressure, staying mentally sharp isn't a luxury. It's how you make good decisions. And here's the practical detail most people miss. Always choose pouches over cans for your emergency kit. Cans are fine in normal life when you have a kitchen. But in an emergency, when you're moving fast or your tools aren't accessible, a can without a can opener is just a metal box. Pouches tear open in seconds, with no tools, no sharp edges, and no wasted time. One more tip that almost no one mentions. Store a few small packets of hot sauce, mustard, or soy sauce alongside your pouches. In a crisis, flavor fatigue is real. Small condiment packets can make the difference between being able to eat something and forcing yourself to. Number 14. Peanut butter. If there is one single food that emergency preparedness experts recommend more consistently than any other, it's this one. Peanut butter. 2 tablespoons deliver approximately 190 calories. A standard 16-ounce jar contains roughly 2,500 calories in total, close to the full daily caloric requirement for an average adult. But raw calorie count isn't even the most important thing here. Peanut butter delivers fats, protein, and carbohydrates simultaneously. That combination is what creates sustained energy, not a spike and crash, but a slow, steady fuel release that keeps your body going for hours without needing another meal. Here's something the standard emergency food discussion almost never brings up. During high-stress situations, your body releases adrenaline. And one of the physiological effects of adrenaline is appetite suppression. When that happens, many people genuinely don't feel hungry even when they desperately need fuel. Foods that are dry, tough, or require effort to chew become very hard to consume in that state. Peanut butter avoids all of that. It's soft, calorie-dense, and easy to swallow even when your appetite is minimal. One practical upgrade worth making: pick up a pack of individual squeeze packets alongside your jar supply. They're available at most outdoor retailers and some supermarkets. For a grab-and-go emergency kit, a bag you might need to carry out of your house quickly, individual packets are far more practical than carrying a full jar. You can eat peanut butter straight, spread it on crackers, or pair it with tortillas. Whatever the situation, it adapts. Number 13. Crackers. Crackers don't sound exciting, and in everyday life they aren't. But in an emergency food setup, they serve a function that most people don't fully appreciate until they need it. They create structure. Eating tuna straight from a pouch or scooping peanut butter with your fingers works, but it feels desperate. It feels like surviving rather than eating. The moment you add crackers underneath, something psychological shifts. It starts to feel like a real meal. That's not a small thing. During extended periods of stress and disruption, maintaining some sense of normalcy has a measurable effect on mental resilience and decision-making. There's also a nutritional detail worth knowing. Not all crackers are equal for emergency storage. Whole grain varieties add fiber to your diet, which helps with digestion when your food intake is reduced and less varied than normal. Plain white flour crackers provide texture and structure, but not much else. Given the choice, whole grain wins. Now here's a practical storage tip most people skip entirely. Once you open a box of crackers, the remaining crackers begin degrading in humidity and air within days. If you're building a longer-term supply, vacuum seal open boxes or transfer them into Ziploc bags with the air pressed out. This simple step can extend their usable life by several months. A single standard box gives you roughly 8 to 10 servings and pairs with almost every other item on this list. But here's something that most emergency food lists completely skip, and it's something that can make everything else on this list useless if you get it wrong. Number 12. Electrolyte packets. You can have 30 days of food stored. You can have every item on this list perfectly organized. And you can still collapse on day 3. Here's why. When your body is under stress, sustained physical activity, heat, fear, limited sleep, it loses electrolytes. Sodium, potassium, and magnesium leave your body through sweat, through rapid breathing, and through the hormonal cascade that stress itself triggers. And when those levels drop, the effects aren't subtle. Muscle cramping, confusion, impaired coordination. In severe cases, cardiac arrhythmia. This is almost never mentioned on emergency food lists, which is extraordinary given how well documented the risk is. Oral rehydration salts, or sachets, are the solution. They're compact, lightweight, and inexpensive. Generic versions cost less than 50 cents per packet and store for 2 to 3 years. The WHO Oral Rehydration Solution formula has been credited with saving over 50 million lives since it was introduced in the 1970s, primarily in situations where people had water but were losing electrolytes faster than plain water could replace them. Commercial brands like Liquid IV, Noon, or Pedialyte powder all work. So do the generic versions sold at pharmacies. Keep at least 20 to 30 packets stored per person. In a crisis, staying hydrated isn't just about drinking water. It's about keeping your body's electrical system, your nerves, your muscles, your heart running correctly. This is the item that most preparedness lists miss. Don't miss it. Number 11. Canned fruit. After several days of eating protein-heavy, calorie-dense foods, something interesting happens. Your body starts to crave something entirely different. Something soft. Something slightly sweet. Something that doesn't require effort to chew or swallow. This is where canned fruit earns its place on the list. During extended stress, appetite suppression is common. Dry foods can feel nearly impossible to consume. Canned fruit is almost the opposite: soft, juicy, mildly sweet, and genuinely easy to eat even when you're not hungry. There's also a hydration benefit that most people throw away. Literally. The liquid inside a can of fruit, whether it's natural fruit juice or light syrup, is a supplementary fluid source. When clean water is limited, discarding that liquid is a waste of something valuable. Here's a distinction worth making before you stock up. Choose fruit packed in juice rather than heavy syrup. Juice-packed fruit provides better hydration value, less added sugar, and the liquid is more nutritionally useful. Heavy syrup is essentially sugar water. Fine in normal life, less ideal when you're managing limited fluid intake. Canned peaches, pineapple, and mandarin oranges are particularly good choices. They're widely available, mild-tasting, and contain reasonable amounts of vitamin C, which your immune system needs even more when you're under physical and mental stress. If you could only store one type of canned fruit, which one would it be? Drop it in the comments right now. I'm genuinely curious what people reach for. Number 10. Nuts. Small. Dense. No preparation required. Nuts might be the most efficient emergency food on this entire list in terms of calories per ounce. A single ounce of almonds, about a small handful, delivers roughly 160 calories, 6 grams of protein. That last one matters more than most people realize. Magnesium is directly involved in muscle function, nerve transmission, and, critically, the body's response to stress. Deficiency is common even in normal life. In a crisis, when you're sweating, sleeping poorly, and running on adrenaline, it depletes faster. Nuts require nothing to eat, take up almost no space, and can be portioned out easily across multiple days. Here's a storage distinction that almost no one mentions. The difference between raw nuts and roasted, salted nuts matters for shelf life. Commercially roasted nuts are often coated in added oils. These oils go rancid significantly faster than the nut's natural fats. Raw nuts or dry roasted versions, no added oil, store considerably longer and hold up better in warm conditions. For longer-term storage, transfer nuts into vacuum-sealed bags or mason jars with oxygen absorbers. This simple step can extend their usable life from months to well over a year. And speaking of shelf life, the next item on this list has a shelf life that makes everything else look temporary. Number 8. Instant oats. In 2015, archaeologists excavating a 3,000-year-old Egyptian tomb discovered sealed clay jars containing honey. When they analyzed the contents, it was still edible. Perfectly preserved. 3,000 years in a sealed vessel, and the honey had not spoiled. This is not a story. This is a documented archaeological finding, and it tells you something important about why honey belongs in every emergency food supply. The chemistry that makes honey nearly indestructible is fascinating. Its extremely low moisture content prevents bacterial growth. And bees actually deposit a compound during honey production that slowly generates hydrogen peroxide, a natural antimicrobial agent. Combined, these properties create an environment where almost no pathogen can survive. This is also not a snack. This is a survival tool. 1 tablespoon of honey delivers approximately 64 calories of fast-acting glucose, immediate fuel when your body is running low. A standard 12-ounce jar contains close to 1,000 calories total. It pairs with oats, crackers, peanut butter, and fruit. It can be eaten straight. And here's something most people don't know. Honey has been used medicinally for thousands of years, and modern research confirms it has real antimicrobial properties. In a scenario where medical supplies are unavailable, this is not irrelevant. One practical note: if your stored honey crystallizes, becomes thick and grainy, it is not spoiled. This is normal. Place the jar in a bowl of warm water, and it will return to liquid form within minutes. 3,000 years of shelf life. Antimicrobial properties. Fast glucose. Pairs with everything. Honey is the most underrated item on this entire list. Number 8. Instant oats. Most people look at a bag of oats and immediately think stove, pot, hot water, 10 minutes, which means in their minds, oats are a cooked food. They're not. Instant oats can be eaten after cold soaking, submerging them in cold water and waiting approximately 15 to 20 minutes. This is a technique called cold soaking, used regularly by ultralight hikers and long-distance backpackers. The oats soften, the texture becomes palatable, and the result is a functional meal requiring nothing but water and patience. The nutritional profile here is excellent. Oats are high in complex carbohydrates and soluble fiber. Unlike simple sugars, which spike blood glucose and lead to a crash, complex carbohydrates release energy gradually. Half a cup of dry instant oats provides about 150 calories and 5 grams of fiber, enough to keep you full for several hours. Here's a preparation tip that elevates oats significantly. Before a crisis hits, pre-mix dry oats with nuts and a small squeeze of honey in a sealed jar. Label it. When the time comes, you add water, wait 15 minutes, and you have a balanced, filling meal with protein, fat, and carbohydrates. Even a modest portion can give your body consistent fuel when options are limited. It may not look impressive, but in a real emergency, it delivers. Number 7. Protein bars. Protein bars were essentially designed for the exact scenario we're preparing for. You're moving fast. You can't stop to eat a real meal. Your body is burning through energy faster than normal, and your blood sugar is starting to drop. You need fuel, and you need it now. A standard protein bar delivers somewhere between 180 and 220 calories, along with roughly 10 to 15 grams of protein. Those numbers aren't enormous, but they're usually enough to push back the point where cognitive function starts to degrade. That last point matters more than people realize. Low blood sugar doesn't just make you physically tired. It directly impairs judgment, memory retrieval, and emotional regulation. In a crisis, those are exactly the functions you can't afford to lose. Here's a warning that the standard preparedness discussion almost never includes. Protein bars stored in hot environments degrade significantly faster than the label suggests. If you keep a bar in your car's glove compartment in a warm climate, a common habit, it may be a crumbly, off-tasting mess long before it expires on paper. Heat accelerates fat oxidation in the coating and filling, leading to rancid flavor and reduced nutritional integrity. For longer-term storage, look for bars with below 5 grams of added sugar and above 10 grams of protein. This ratio provides sustained energy rather than a quick glucose spike. 10 bars fit comfortably in a single-gallon Ziploc bag, compact, portable, and ready when you need them. Number 6. Jerky. Pound for pound, jerky is one of the most protein-concentrated foods you can store. Here's the science behind it. When fresh meat is dehydrated, roughly 75% of its water weight is removed. But nearly all of its protein content stays intact. That means a small, lightweight bag of jerky, something you could carry in a shirt pocket, can deliver the protein content of a full serving of meat. 1 ounce of commercial beef jerky typically contains 9 to 11 grams of protein, along with iron and zinc, minerals critical for immune function and tissue repair. Commercially produced jerky can remain shelf-stable for up to 1 to 2 years when kept sealed and away from heat. Here's the problem nobody talks about, and it's a real one. Most commercial jerky is extremely high in sodium. A single serving can contain 700 to 900 milligrams, more than a third of your recommended daily intake. Under normal circumstances, that's manageable. But in a crisis, when water intake is already reduced and your body is working harder than usual, that sodium load accelerates dehydration. You eat the jerky, you feel thirstier, you drink more of your limited water supply, the cycle continues. The fix is simple: look for low-sodium jerky varieties, or if you have time before a crisis, make your own in a standard home oven at 160 to 170 degrees Fahrenheit over several hours. Homemade versions give you full control over salt content. Pair jerky with crackers and canned fruit, and you have a complete portable meal. Now, coming up, the single organizational mistake that causes most home stockpiles to be completely useless when they're actually needed. Number 5. The rotation system. This isn't a food, but it might be the most important item on this entire list. You can buy everything we've discussed. You can spend the money, carry it home, and stack it neatly on a shelf. And then 18 months later, when you actually need it, you can discover that half of it expired 6 months ago. This happens in the majority of home stockpiles. Not because people made bad choices, because they made no plan for keeping the supply fresh. The solution is a logistics principle called FIFO. First in, first out. It's the same system used by military supply chains, commercial food distribution networks, and emergency management agencies around the world. The concept is simple. When you buy new stock, it goes to the back of the shelf. The oldest items are always at the front. You eat from the front, replace from the back. This means your emergency food supply is never actually sitting untouched for years. It's cycling through your regular diet, being consumed and replaced on a rolling basis. Nothing expires unused. Here's a practical addition. Don't just use the printed expiration date. Write the purchase date on every item you buy with a permanent marker. Expiration dates reflect ideal storage conditions: cool, dry, dark environments. If your pantry runs warm in summer, many items will degrade faster than the label suggests. The purchase date gives you a more accurate picture of real-world freshness. According to USDA data, American households waste an estimated 30 to 40% of the food they purchase, much of it from poor storage rotation. Don't let your emergency supply become part of that statistic. Knowing what to store is only half of preparedness. Knowing how to keep it fresh is what separates a real safety net from an expensive false sense of security. Number 4. Dark chocolate. This one surprises people. But stay with the science for a moment, because it makes complete sense. In a crisis, one of the biggest threats to your survival isn't physical. It's cognitive. When your body releases sustained cortisol, the primary stress hormone, it impairs memory consolidation, narrows attention, increases impulsivity, and degrades the quality of your decisions. You become reactive instead of strategic. In scenarios that require calm judgment, sustained cortisol is one of your worst enemies. Dark chocolate, specifically 70% cacao or higher, has been shown in peer-reviewed research to reduce cortisol levels and lower perceived stress markers. A 2017 study published in the journal Nutrients found that daily consumption of dark chocolate produced measurable reductions in stress indicators in healthy adults. The mechanism involves several compounds. Theobromine, a mild stimulant naturally present in cacao, provides a smoother, longer-lasting alertness effect than caffeine without the same crash. Magnesium, of which dark chocolate is one of the richest food sources, is directly involved in stress response regulation, nerve function. Flavonols in cacao have documented effects on blood flow and cognitive function. 1 ounce of 85% dark chocolate provides approximately 170 calories. A standard 100-gram bar stores well for 12 to 18 months at room temperature. The higher the cacao percentage, the lower the sugar content, and the longer it stores without degradation. This is not a treat. It is a no-cook, long shelf-life food with documented effects on the stress response that no other item on this list can match. Keep a few bars in your emergency supply. Your brain will thank you when it matters most. Number 3. Tortillas. Bread seems like the obvious choice as a base for emergency meals. But bread has a fundamental problem. It molds quickly, crumbles under pressure, and requires relatively cool, dry conditions to stay fresh even for a short time. Tortillas solve all of that. Flour tortillas sealed in their original packaging stay good for 6 to 8 weeks at room temperature. Some shelf-stable brands now offer versions designed for up to 1 year of storage without refrigeration. Their lower moisture content compared to bread makes them far more resistant to the mold and degradation that quickly make bread useless. Tortillas are also more structurally resilient. They don't crumble in a bag. They don't crush under pressure. They travel well. That matters when you're packing a bag quickly or carrying food in less than ideal conditions. But the real value is versatility. Add tuna and fold it. Add beans and roll it. Spread peanut butter across it. A tortilla turns almost every individual item on this list into a complete handheld meal that requires no bowl, no utensils, and no setup. One practical distinction worth knowing: corn tortillas have a slightly longer shelf life than flour and tend to be a better option for people managing wheat allergies or gluten sensitivities. In an emergency, dietary restrictions don't disappear, and having an allergen-friendly option in your supply is thoughtful preparation. A standard 10-pack provides roughly 1,500 calories in total and functions as the foundation for dozens of combinations. Number 2. Canned beans. If you had to pick the single most nutritionally complete item on this list, canned beans would be a very strong argument for first place. In one can, you get protein, carbohydrates, and fiber simultaneously. A standard 15-ounce can of black beans delivers approximately 350 calories, 21 grams of protein, and 15 grams of fiber. That protein and fiber combination does something that most emergency foods can't replicate. It creates lasting satiety. You feel full for longer. Your energy stays stable. You don't need to eat again as quickly. No preparation needed. They're already fully cooked in the can. Open it and eat. Here's a detail almost no one mentions: the liquid in a can of beans, technically called aquafaba. It contains water-soluble proteins and some of the carbohydrates from the beans. When water is scarce and you've already been instructed not to waste the liquid in canned fruit, the same principle applies here. Don't pour it out. Drink it. When purchasing for long-term storage, choose low-sodium varieties where possible to keep your overall sodium intake manageable. Look for cans with pull-tab lids. In an emergency, the last thing you want to discover is that you have 20 cans of beans and no can opener. Pair a can of beans with a tortilla, add a handful of nuts and a square of dark chocolate, and you have a genuinely balanced, nutritious meal. Number 1. Canned soup. Every other item on this list gives you either food or fluid. Number 1 on this list gives you both at the same time. Canned soup, specifically broth-based varieties, is the only item here that naturally combines hydration and nutrition in a single package. And in a genuine crisis, that combination is more valuable than it might seem. The broth in a can of chicken noodle or vegetable soup isn't just water. It contains dissolved sodium and potassium, electrolytes your body is actively depleting under stress. A standard 18-ounce can provides roughly 200 calories and approximately 800 milligrams of sodium, which means it's contributing meaningfully to your electrolyte balance, not just your calorie count. The texture matters too. After hours or days of eating dry, dense foods, crackers, jerky, bars, soup offers something your digestive system. Its soft liquid consistency is easier to process, especially when you're fatigued and your body is running inefficiently. There's also a psychological dimension to soup that research in crisis psychology actually acknowledges. Foods associated with warmth and comfort, even when served at room temperature, produce measurable reductions in anxiety markers compared to neutral foods. Soup, for most people, carries significant comfort associations. In a high-stress scenario, that's not trivial. Choose broth-based soups over cream-based versions for your emergency supply. Cream-based soups are higher in fat, shorter in shelf life once opened, and harder to digest under stress. Broth-based soups are lighter, more hydrating, and store better. When everything else feels chaotic, there's something quietly powerful about opening a can and having a complete ready meal waiting for you. Let's run through the complete list one more time. Number 15. Tuna and salmon pouches, your portable protein source. 14. Peanut butter, calorie density you can eat with a spoon. 13. Crackers, the structural foundation of any emergency meal. 12. Electrolyte packets, the item almost every other list forgets, and the one that could matter most. 11. Canned fruit, hydration, sweetness, and vitamins in a single pull tab. 10. Nuts, dense, portable, no prep required. 9. Honey, the only item here with a documented shelf life measured in thousands of years. 8. Instant oats, a full-filling meal with nothing but cold water in 15 minutes. 7. Protein bars, portable fuel designed for exactly this kind of situation. 6. Jerky, concentrated protein for when you're on the move. 5. The rotation system, because even the best stockpile becomes useless without it. 4. Dark chocolate, because in a crisis, protecting your mind is as important as feeding your body. 3. Tortillas, the versatile base that turns individual ingredients into real meals. 2. Canned beans, the most nutritionally complete single can on any shelf. And number 1. Canned soup, the only item that delivers food and hydration together. None of these items are rare. None of them are expensive. Every single one is available at your nearest supermarket today. But there's one rule that sits above all of them, and it has nothing to do with food. Water. The Federal Emergency Management Agency recommends storing at least 1 gallon of water per person per day, with a minimum 2-week supply as a baseline target. Food keeps your body going. But water determines how long you can survive at all. Your stockpile isn't complete without it. Here's the final thing I want to leave you with. The calmest person in a crisis is never just the bravest. They're the most prepared. When power goes out, when shelves go empty, when cooking stops being an option, the person who thought ahead doesn't panic. They act. They feed their family. They make clear decisions while everyone around them is scrambling. The simple foods you set aside today could be exactly what carries your family through the difficult days you hope never come. Now, in the next video, we're covering the 10 foods you should never stockpile. Common items that most people assume are safe bets for emergency storage but actually make survival harder, not easier. Some of them are on almost every preparedness list online, and they're quietly working against you. That video is coming up next, and it will probably change at least 2 or 3 things about how you're currently set up. If you've already started building your emergency supply, or if this video just pushed you to start, drop a 10 in the comments. Let's see who's actually prepared. And if you found something on this list that surprised you, I want to know which one. The comments are open. Stay ready.